Are y'all ready to get
we're ready.
started?
Sorry.
Let's get it going.
Okay, here we go.
I've got all my giggles out. Let's get started.
Here we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talkback Corner, Episode 7. As musicians and singers, we're all pretty confident, or should be, of what we are... I said the wrong words. Let's try again.
Rerun.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talkback Corner, Episode 7. As musicians and singers, we're all pretty confident of what we're supposed to be doing on stage. But what about when you're not on stage? That's what we're going to be discussing tonight, so stick with us. You're listening to Talkback Corner, a podcast by church musicians for church musicians, giving you an inside look into our story and our passion for music. Our goal is to inspire musicians not to just play an instrument, but worship with that instrument and use their talents to further the kingdom of God.
We should do away with the table and just put 3 recliners in here
Oh, yes.
I'm down for that.
with the mic, just like where we don't have to move.
So
Yes.
let's do that, and then if we have Caleb on, we'll just make him sit on the floor.
Crisscross applesauce.
Oh, Caleb.
Give him some Hot Wheels to play with or something.
All right. Are y'all ready to get started?
Let's ready. Or let's
go.
We're going.
Let's ready.
Listo.
Set.
Go.
Go.
And welcome back to the Talkback. What is our podcast?
It's
Talkback.
the Talkback Corner.
Talkback Corner.
And this
podcast.
is episode 7. If you would
think-
follow along.
Thank you, knowledgeable co-host who hasn't seen any of the videos we've put out.
I've seen one. Tonight.
More people have seen that than any of the other ones. Welcome back, everybody. This is the 7th episode of Talkback Corner,
That's right.
and we got a really good topic tonight, and it's one that I have noticed, I have observed in my lifetime through my many, many years of playing instruments. Not that many.
Wait, aren't you the youngest person at this table?
I am.
He is.
So what is our collective number of years? You know how pressure washing businesses will be like 100 plus years of pressure washing experience.
Alive or music?
Music.
What if music is life?
So for me, it'd be
Do we count
15
when we
years.
started fiddling around with stuff? Or
Yep.
do we count when we... Okay. All right.
I'd be 15 years.
I'm at 21.
Whoa.
Wow. So
So right
15
now
and
we're at
21, that's
36.
what? 36 plus
3 for you.
4 or 5. I think it's 12 years for me.
12.
Yeah, because I
48.
start, 14 years for me.
50 years.
I just
guys.
gotta
How many
about-
years was it for you?
21.
So it'd be 22 for me.
We've got 50 years of experience.
What makes
50
you think
years
of
of
pressure
experience.
washing businesses?
I don't know. Just like those little independent businesses.
They
and they'll
do.
say over 100 plus years of
And
pressure
then
washing
some like
experience.
30-year-old guy comes up like,
Yeah, I've helped my dad since I was 6, and he's helped his dad. And so, anyways, back to our topic. Needless to say, we have a lot of experience at the table, and I'm sure y'all have observed the same thing. But it's a pet peeve of mine, I guess you could say. At the same time, it's not really a good practice to get into. But we'll start out. We'll see where it goes. I'm sure we'll end up on something completely different or on a rabbit trail off of this. But when you are not involved on the platform for a service, I feel like there are several topics we can go into here. So when you're on the platform, you should be giving it your all, worshiping, and you show up early for practice. go to leadership, you go to prayer.
You show up prepared for
Show up
practice.
prepared for practice, correct. And the reason I bring this up is because somebody's got to,
Yeah.
and we may as well do it here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good conversation.
yep. Because eyes are always watching,
Yeah.
and you can ruin your witness. You can confirm a lot of false beliefs that have been portrayed for musicians and singers. And preachers too, honestly. I mean, it's all the way around. But when you're up on the stage and it's a blowing and going service, you're up there worshiping and stuff. And then you're not on the lineup for a night, and you walk in right at the end of prayer meeting, and you aren't tapped in. You're not a part of what's going on, I guess. And don't get me wrong, there's situations that come up that are out of our control. You know, I'm talking about, hey, I'm not singing tonight. I'm not on the platform. I don't have to be at practice. I can show up late for prayer or right at service time. And then you come in and you just kind of sit there, go through the motions. You show no emotion.
Yeah.
So our topic is, what do you do when you're not on the platform? Me personally, I try to worship the way I always have, the way I've done it my whole life. Before I was a musician, I was a worshiper, and
Yeah.
I try to translate that into now when I'm not on the platform. I'm in the altar, I'm worshiping, I'm, clapping, singing, whatever the service brings, that's what I'm doing when I'm not on the platform. A lot of people can look at that and say, oh, well, so-and-so sang this morning, and he or she or whatever, they were feeling it. They were singing good. They sounded so good. They were, they were in the spirit. They were just throwing down up there. And then they walk in that Sunday night, sit on the front row, the back row, the middle row, whatever. They just sit down and go on with service. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it at conferences. I've seen it at camps. I've seen it everywhere. But I feel like when you do that, you not only miss your blessing, but you're keeping someone else out of a blessing. Because as a worshiper, we've been taught you're not just a worshiper with that instrument in your hand. You're not just a worshiper with your voice. You're not just a worshiper with the abilities that God has given you. You're a worshiper because you're breathing, and that's what we were created to do.
Yes.
So, and sometimes the music may not be on point, especially with newer musicians starting out. It's not going to be blowing and going and throwing the house down. Not because of them, but our actions and our attitude and our worship can take a service to that point. I can say, as a musician, it's a healthy confidence boost when the whole church is saying, yeah, we're having church. They're not, well, this is just another night. This is just another Sunday morning service we got to come to. No, when they show up and they are as hungry as we are for a move of God.
Yeah.
It builds a healthy confidence for me to not be self-conscious of what's going on, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's something that had crossed my mind of, as a younger musician, that's a very important thing that nobody tells you. At me, I've just observed it and said, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to let a rock cry out in my place.
No.
And just because I'm not behind a drum set or a microphone, I'm not just going to go through the motions and not do anything, But any thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree, and I've heard it since I've been in church talk about, I guess as a preacher, I always try to side with preachers and throw away like the harmful criticism, but like what the way that we hold ministry, we should hold. I know we should hold them to a higher standard, but I guess I always think that everyone in the church, like we shouldn't just say, well, he's a minister, so blah, blah. But anyhow, since I've been in church, I've always heard how wrong it would be if there's a minister, and even pastor talks about a person that he saw one time who got up blowing and going, telling everybody, worship, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. And as soon as he got done, it's not his time in the platform or in the pulpit. He gets down and is deader than a statue on the pew. And I've always heard how bad it is for a preacher. Not necessarily like organization wise, but like how bad it is for the spiritual state of a preacher if they get in the pulpit and they're so passionate about God in the pulpit. They're so passionate, trying to get the church to move and worship and, trying to usher in the presence of God and take the church somewhere. But then when they're not in the pulpit, they're not backing another preacher.
Yeah.
Or worshiping.
Yeah. With that same passion.
Right.
It's a passion that shows up when I'm in the spotlight. And I would say that's the same, we should look at that the same for singers, musicians. I'm not singing tonight, so I don't care. But if I'm singing, I'm going to be in the spotlight. I'm going to be on the reel. I'm going to be on the short, YouTube short, whatever. I'm going to be the one, that jumps the highest and gets noticed, or I'm going to be the one playing such and such. And I agree. I think that when you're on the platform, I know that you have a role, and we've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but I know you have a role as a minister, whether you're singing or playing an instrument. You are ushering in the presence of God. You are helping the church in ministry by playing an instrument or singing. But I feel like most of the stuff that we do, preachers, singers, and musicians, the things that we do on the platform, I feel like is more of instructional. And I feel like demonstration is what we do when we're not on the platform, and when you see me at work, when we see each other, when we come to prayer meeting, that there is no platform. Nobody's on the platform at prayer meeting, and it's demonstration. Then, are you what you are when there's nobody else around? Are you what you are when you're sitting in a group of friends? So I completely agree. I think, like I said, a lot of our songs, I know Sister Jennings talked about there was like songs that we do that like you're trying to, you're trying to tell the people what to do, like praise. You're telling them praise the Lord, or I guess you're telling yourself to praise the Lord on myself. But then there's songs that you're singing to them. Or there's songs that you're singing straight to God, things like that. But yeah, I think that's more of an instructional point. But the demonstration, you should worship more when you don't have a microphone, or instrument, or a platform. You should worship more in the pew and in the altar than. Like you should have more passion, not matched passion, but more passion. As a preacher, I should have more passion when my brothers are preaching than when I am.
Right.
And that's not like I've got to try to like, I've got to overly back my, like it should just be our nature. And It should just be, who we are, because this is the time for my demonstration. Now I've got to live what I preached. I've got to live what I sung. I got to live what I played as a musician. That's my thoughts on it.
And I'm glad you hit on that, because I forgot to bring it up. When you are worshiping, when you're not on the platform, or when you're back in the preacher, when you're not preaching, or, you're not doing it to say, hey, everybody, look at me. I'm still worshiping.
Yeah.
I'm look at how holy I am because I'm still worshiping. When I worship, it's me and God.
Yeah.
Just like when I play the drums.
How it should be.
It becomes me and God. And you don't try to look around and outshout everybody around you. It's how you worship God. You give your all, you give your best, and keep it from being a look at me, look at what I can do situation. Because then pride starts creeping in.
Yeah.
And that pride is one of the biggest battles of any musician or singer.
Yeah.
It's the biggest pitfall, the biggest
Anybody
sinkhole.
used on a platform. Of course, people that are used on a platform in secular venues are probably already succumbed to pride.
Yeah.
But in a church, every prayer meeting, you are trying to kill that flesh. But I would say everybody that steps foot on a platform of a church at some point, I'm not saying that everyone's prideful, but everyone has to fight that at some point in their life.
And because it's going to come, you are going to face pride, and you have to learn how to channel that and move it away, to put away those evil thoughts. And okay, I'm not. If it means, there have literally been times where I have dumbed down my playing, just to keep my spirit right. And I don't say that as, I was just tearing it up, because I wasn't, but it helped me from thinking, I'm just killing it. I'm the best drummer there ever was. When really what I was doing was good for me to be able to do. It wasn't wrong for me to do it, but my mind was, okay, or certain people come to the service. Say you've invited somebody to come to church and you're on the lineup that night to sing or play or whatever. You can find yourself trying to impress that person that you've invited.
Yeah. Do more in that moment.
Right. And you ruin all of the witness. And then that person comes back for another service and you're not on the lineup, and you're just kind of sitting up front or sitting in the pew, just kind of, clapping your hands every now and then, and maybe standing up with the praise team, but not doing anything else. You've ruined the witness because they have succumbed to, okay, well, everything everybody says about a church is true. That they're just doing it all for a show, and it's about them, not about God. And that's how you stay out of that pitfall, or how I do. I try to dumb down my playing to where it's like, well, anybody can do this.
Yeah.
I can be replaced right now. And you talked about worshiping harder when you're not on the drums or when you're not part of it. A lot of times that can feel like a restraint if you're behind a drum set and there's a rocking service going on, or you're playing a guitar, which it's a little bit easier to transition off the guitar and go down. But when you have that opportunity, you take advantage of it, and you do worship harder. You do back the preacher harder. You do, do it with all your might, everything you got in you. Do your due diligence of worship and praise. And if everybody does that, every service will be phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Because that's what God wants. Mm-hmm. That's what God created us for. That's why we're here, is to worship Him. And so no matter what you're doing in the service, if you're taking up the offering, it's not more important than your worship and your praise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So starting this topic, this scripture actually, my wife and I were talking about today, and she mentioned it actually shortly before we came out here, so it came to mind. So I have to give credit to her for coming up with it. But it hits my spirit when you were talking, because you can worship hard on a platform, but if you come off the platform and you're not, then are you really unified in worship? Sure, you can be unified with your band, but are you unified in worship if you are not a worshiper off the platform? So the story comes to mind in 2 Chronicles. Solomon had just finished the temple, right? Just finished the temple. They had completed it. The priests were doing their thing. They had even brought the Ark of the Covenant into the temple. Nothing happened yet. The priests were doing their thing. Nothing happened yet. They went into the holy place. Nothing happened yet. Verse 13 says, "It came to pass as the trumpeters and singers were as one to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord, when they lifted up their voice and praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with the cloud, even the house of the Lord, so that the priest could not stand to minister by reason for the cloud."
Yeah.
It wasn't getting through a service. It wasn't finishing the outline. It was when everybody in the room, not just your singers,
Right.
not just your musicians, everybody in the room was unified in praising the Lord. Mm-hmm. And if you are off the platform not praising the Lord, you are not unified.
Yep.
And so you are hindering the glory from falling.
And what I love about that too is in the church world as a whole, whether you're Pentecostal or another denomination, church world as a whole has, in the past maybe 5 years or more, less, has really started. I was about to say no offense, but full offense. I'm getting old. I just, about to be 30. But the church world has started really promoting and lifting up people.
Yeah.
And I know we've had these conversations. I get that you have to promote who your speaker is or of that nature, and but the church world has gotten to a point where, so and so's flying in from such and such, and they're gonna play whatever instrument. Oh, I gotta go to church because they got this singer from that state who I follow on Instagram, and like everything's a made big deal. And I'm so glad that we have very, very talented and anointed people in many organizations that are able to do so. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the church world has gotten so much to the point of promoting and lifting up self and people. There wasn't one minstrel named in that.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
There wasn't even a priest named. But yet, and that's a lot of times it comes down to pride. Oh, I'm singing a solo tonight. Well, you best believe I'm going to be dancing and worshiping during my solo. But then I sing, I got the joy of the Lord, and I'm just dead,
Yeah.
And even in that. But I think, and I think a lot of it has to do with kind of that entertainment culture that has tried to creep into church realms across denominations, where so for instance, if you don't know us, we are a very involved music department. We've got, I'd say, a medium-sized church right now, and we are very involved. We are all involved in different ministries of the church, wear many different hats in a service. In one service, if he's playing and I'm playing an instrument, none of us are solely thinking about our instrument. There's other things that are going on our mind throughout the service. But and if you're a larger church that has this, I don't want this to be too bad, but like musicians having a green room or singers or whatever, or I don't know what they call that. I think green room. But, okay, you're not on the instrument, so you go off and you go to this room that has the snacks, and I wouldn't mind the snacks.
I've been requesting a fruit tray ever since we had electric drums.
Maybe the coffee. The coffee.
But so it's things like that where sometimes we promote the wrong thing. And, it wasn't a bad idea to have a great worship leader who now travels. It wasn't a bad idea to have good musicians that go and travel and they're full-time musicians. But I do feel like at some point we have really promoted singers, musicians so much
individually,
and preachers too individually,
right, that
it's more about who and what and things of that. And okay, let's say you are an apostolic singer, and someone like James Wilson is in a service where you're singing. David Jennings is there and you're playing an instrument, and your pride steps in and they got an album they're working on. I want to feature, or I want to play the live tour, whatever this, where I got to show off. And so you do things. I think like you were mentioning being unified. So now I'm playing guitar solos that don't fit the song or the moment in service, and it's just it all comes down to that self thing.
Yeah, and the revival that went on here a while back. I think it was up in Kentucky or...
Yeah, it was. Asbury, Kentucky.
Asbury, yeah. So they were all unified, and I wasn't there. I can't speak to it, but it appeared that there was something going on.
Yeah.
That they were all unified, and I know the musicians were rotating out.
Yeah.
We had a couple acquaintances, Brother Fish being one of them, that went and prayed people through to the Holy Ghost. And it was so, I wouldn't say easy, but they came there because they wanted something more.
Yeah.
And
they didn't go because a big name person was singing.
Right. Yeah. There was no big names mentioned of anybody. It started with, hey, this is a small crew of people that's... you go back to Azusa Street, the same thing happened there. The day of Pentecost, the same thing happened there. Where, who cares who's there?
Yeah.
We're all in one accord. We're all in one mind, and we're wanting a move of God. Here I go with analogies. So, if you're in a desert...
Parables.
If you're in a desert and you are just so thirsty, you don't care what the water is inside. And that's all we are as vessels. You don't care what it looks like. You don't care if it's a cactus leaf. You don't care if it's a bottle cap. You don't care if it's a big old Route 44 cup from Sonic full of water. You just want some water.
Yeah.
It's the same water that comes out of all of them. And you're just thirsty. You're longing for water, no matter what it comes in. And there's different people, different styles, different preaching styles, different playing styles, different singing styles. Yeah. And if they're all in one accord and if they all have the same mindset, you just want the glory of God to show up.
Yeah. You
want to feel his presence and be in that service and be, you want to feel it.
Yeah.
And if you're not unified, and if so-and-so's showing out, a lot of times you're not going to feel it because they've thrown the whole service off because they've made a show of themselves. And they've been a distraction, and they've distracted so many people that they've taken their mind off of what's really going on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the green room or whatever. We were talking about that the other day on the way to Nashville, of how they'll come out and do the worship set, Then the preacher gets up there and they go to the green room.
They just go hang out,
Yeah.
eat snacks, talk about what they did wrong, forget the rest of it.
Come out there and play a song that don't even match.
No, then they come back out and they're all into it again. You
Yeah.
know, they're
And that shows me, as someone in the audience,
are
that if-
looking from afar.
if they can fake it, so can I.
Yeah.
You know, and that little moment right there, it just shows that if and sometimes it is important not only like fake your worship, but also not pretend. And I don't want to say this wrong, but some people, when they worship, I think we mentioned it a little bit, but when they worship, it's false motives in worship. And so it looks like maybe they're getting a blessing from God, but really they're just putting on. And you'd hate to say stuff like that because like it just shouldn't happen.
Right.
You know, it just shouldn't happen. But we are human, and there are some people where that happens. But so say, you've got somebody who don't care about worshiping God at all. They are just trying to promote themselves and what they can do and things of that. So they're not tuned into the service. They're not this or that, but they're showing a false sense of worship. It's a prideful worship, which God doesn't accept. But a prideful worship and a prideful sacrifice, and it looks from afar that they are receiving something special from God.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been observing, because maybe I'm not bought all the way in yet, and I'm observing everyone in the church before I decide that I'm going to be all in. And their lifestyle, what I've seen from them outside of church, or I've noticed in the 3 weeks that I've been coming to church, they're only here early, like you were talking about, on the nights where they're doing this, that, and that. But yet, I mean, when they do sing, when they do preach, when they do play an instrument, man, it's just like they get tapped in. I can live half-hearted, half committed,
Take on a form of godliness.
and I can get blessed like they're getting blessed. They're feeling the same thing. That person who comes to every prayer meeting, they're here whether they're playing or not. They're doing whatever they need to be doing. They're worshiping whether they're on the platform or not. They get the same blessing.
From a distance.
Yeah, I'll take the easy
From the
route.
outside in.
And I think that's another danger
Yep.
of that type of lifestyle for a musician or just person on a
And
platform.
it also can boil down to, okay, you're on this more goes back to, and I think we've discussed it, but I just want to bring it back up because all of this stuff, I see the church going away from it. And if we don't put an end to it and start going back the other way, it could turn out bad. So somebody's got to say it.
Yeah.
And the 30 people that watch this,
Might as well be us.
5 of those views being mine. If you're triggered, I'm sorry, but we've got to have the real thing.
Yeah.
Whatever affiliation we want to have, it's got to be the real thing. And there's only one way to get that, and that's purity and true worship. So if you come in on a Wednesday night and the songs may not be exactly what you want to play, but that's the ones that were chosen, that's what the worship leader felt for that night, that's what God led them to select for that evening, for that service, for his service. It's not our service.
Yeah.
Pastor said it many times. It's not our deal. This is an outline that we go by when we have our pre-service or our leadership meeting for the service. Things may change, but this is what we're doing unless God directs us otherwise. Okay. So even just this Wednesday night, I was convicted because I showed up to play and I was fixing to just play and do my part, I don't know how you'd say it. Do what I was there for. But then God was like, are you going to do the bare minimum? Or are you going to try to cultivate an atmosphere here?
Yeah.
And this podcast has convicted me more than I guess anybody listening. It just brings up a lot of stuff that I'm like, I need to do better at that.
Yeah,
I need to, if I'm going to sit here and say this, I need to do better at it. So I played just like I would on a Sunday night or a Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And whether anybody else takes part in that, that's between them and God. But you know, you gave your best. You done your best. You put forth your best sacrifice without pride and without arrogance, I guess.
At the end of the day, we're called to be worshipers.
Yeah.
And you're not a worshiper if you're doing it on the platform, but not at the pew.
Right.
You're not a worshiper if your lifestyle doesn't reflect that.
Yeah.
And if you're not a worshiper, then you have no place in the kingdom.
It's
Yeah.
It's
because if you don't enjoy worshiping, heaven's going to be quite
the culture shock for you.
Let me say it this way: if you're not a worshiper,
You're not going to get there.
hell's going to be quite the surprise.
Yeah. you know I was about to say, I hate to take a serious turn, but I guess we're already talking serious. One of the saddest parts, though, is when you look at Cain and Abel, who Cain had the sacrifice that God wouldn't accept. It wasn't pleasing to God. And Abel had the sacrifice that was. And Cain got so jealous of that he killed his brother. And so, thinking about it, in how many churches is there somebody that's being blessed by God that is doing it right, and they're being watched by someone with an attitude of Cain, and they're getting spiritually, emotionally killed by their brother?
Yeah.
Whether maybe it's 2 piano players, 2 guitars, 2 basses, 2 drummers, 2 singers, whatever, that alternator or something like that. And that's another sad part because of what effects that has on the person that's going through whatever in life and just coming to church and giving their all, because that's all they know how to do is just give their all in worship. And they feel like they're getting attacked by their brother. And I won't say the brother can't help it, but they're in an attitude or spirit of Cain, And so that's another sad part is who else. This doesn't just affect you. This isn't just you're wrong, you need to get right. Like, you can get to the point where you're affecting others directly, not just indirectly by people observing you, but you could directly have attitudes, have mentalities, and okay, now I'm going to start gossiping.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could be like, well, I could sing that one better than he did, or I could do that better than he did.
Yeah.
And
spreading rumors, spreading a little discord.
So now, this section of the church, they're focused on this person, waiting on them to mess up, instead of focused on worshiping.
Yeah.
And it kills the whole dynamic of the church. It literally kills every service because that's what they're focused on now.
Yeah. So, a little bit of a less serious topic on this discussion.
It's not allowed. I'm sorry.
We talk only serious here.
Something as a musician, this is confession, something as a musician that I catch myself doing when I'm not on the platform, or when I'm on the platform not on an instrument. And this is probably bad. I will say that I don't let it affect my worship, but as a musician, I am very, I guess, tuned in to the music of the service because it very, very, very much interests me. And so now, and I wouldn't say this, I'm a worshiper, blah, 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 blah. But I don't, oh, that was a cool drum roll, so I'm not going to worship. Like, I notice it, but also worship. But, like, there's times when y'all are playing and I'm not. And you come down and I'm like, dude, that one chord voicing that you done, that was perfect, man. That, I loved it.
And then I say, what are you talking
he's
about?
Like, he
what
literally,
are you
I don't
talking
even know.
about?
Or no, so Cody too.
It's mainly in practice.
Yeah. Well, no, and also like I do look at him a lot, and sometimes I do it like, someone's up there in the pulpit and they're just saying a joke or something, it's just like a friendly moment in service. Like I might look at him and smile and try to make him laugh because he's on the platform and I'm not. But he hits his trash splash and everyone's shouting. It's just like this is the shout time, and I'm worshiping, but also I'm like, I really love it when he does that, There's moments when Caleb hits a lick that's good, and there's some moments he hits a lick that's bad.
Bless his heart.
And you just gotta worship through it. No, but
He'll be here. Is it next week?
It's next
or
week.
the week after next?
No, it's next
Next
week.
week.
All right.
He's out of town this week, so it's next week.
But as a musician, I notice those things, but I got to realize that I can't be uninvolved in worship just because I'm enjoying what you're playing, or what he's playing, or what anybody's playing. I can notice that, I can hear it and appreciate it, or critique it, if I had to. But also, in the end, I'm still supposed to be worshiping, not just being entertained.
Well, and I've noticed myself, or I haven't noticed myself. I've noticed. I was trying to say like me. I have noticed visitors when they come to church. Some of them you can tell are musically inclined.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to look at other than the congregation. So I see a lot of expressions and all that when I'm on the drums. But I'll be watching them, and let's say they're a guitar player. They're watching the guitar player, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're a drummer, I can notice them watching me, and they're like, well, I immediately start dumbing down my playing because at that moment I'm being a distraction.
Yeah.
And so that is a window into my mind of you're killing it and they love it, and that's where I was talking about, you have to channel it. You have, whatever it takes, you have to shun pride. You got to get away from it. And, I've had them come up to me after service, man, you killed it up there. What, thank you, but it wasn't anything I did. I wasn't doing it for your praise. And we talked about how to accept that compliment in a humble, the right way to take it. A lot of times they're just trying to be an encouragement and say, man, you're, and when I know I've done it right is when they come up and say, you're doing it for the right reason.
Yeah.
And I wish I was doing it for the right reason, or keep doing what you're doing, or man, you were worshiping on them drums tonight.
I love how you worship with your playing.
Right. And there's a difference there. If I notice they're like, they have nothing else going on except for focused in on the drums, that's when I start dumbing it down. If they're worshiping and they're getting into whatever they're dancing, they're feeling it to whatever I'm playing, if I stop, that'll be a distraction.
Yeah.
And no, I don't just lock eyes on visitors, but it's just stuff you notice.
You're a drummer.
Look at me. Hey, watch this. I'll do that in practice to mess with Jesse, but
You know what I just realized? Cody's dumbed down drumming is far better my very, very best day drumming.
Well, you're dumbed down guitar playing, piano playing, bass playing.
And
It's
shaker.
far better.
And shaker.
I'm a shaker player now.
You're a shaker player. The shaker player.
So the perfect example, Cody and I, this was before Matt had moved down to this. Well, I mean, you have lived in this area a while, but
4.5 years.
Joined us at our church and joined the music team. And this isn't somebody at our church, but Cody and I had witnessed in a service somebody whose life. Somebody whose life that we
knew outside of
we knew him outside
them at
of church. We were intertwined in areas with them, and they were playing a shaker one night, but their lifestyle inside of the church, and this is probably was even matched platform and audience. But this is another good example of not just when you're at church and you're not on the platform, but their lifestyle outside of the four walls of the church building was 180 different than their lifestyle that they lived outside. And they were not quiet about things that they done and partook of on Saturday night before they went to church on Sunday.
Yep.
To try to lead the church into a place of worship.
And what that did was caused others to say, if they can live like that and come in on Sunday and worship like that, and they appear to be receiving like you were talking about, changed the whole mindset of guests and all that.
Cody, why is your church? Jesse, why is your church?
Yeah.
Why can't y'all?
We got those questions.
You
well,
know?
they do this, they do that.
Well, number one, nobody's supposed to be doing that, you know?
But, yeah.
So I guess to bring it to a serious note,
Back to the...
before we
were lightening up.
Before we turn it down here, you can turn me down a little bit.
I'll turn you down.
Okay.
Oh, turn it, yeah.
Put me a little more
Hang on.
highs on there too.
Yeah.
Sound man, I need some more monitor.
Make me crispy.
All right, Chris.
So
That's the bag of I don't know which camera I'm talking to right here, but the bag of
hey,
every
look at every
preacher.
single one of them, and we'll go through.
We need more monitor.
Unless it's me, and then you can just turn her all the way down. I'll just stand up there. And,
So this ties in perfectly with what you preached on Sunday, where you don't have to worry what you're doing off the platform, on the platform, whatever, if you get back to the very basic first commandment Jesus put forth.
Yes.
Somebody said, or somebody asked Jesus, what is the first commandment? What's the greatest commandment? If everything else gets thrown by the wayside, what should we be doing? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your mind and strength. The rest takes care of itself. And if you are following that commandment, you will worship off the platform.
Mm-hmm.
You'll worship on the platform. You'll worship on your job.
yep.
So if we can get back to that basic, the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah. I heard somebody say that the gifts of the Spirit, they feel like if the Bible is still being written, that the gifts of the Spirit is was it the gifts of the Spirit? It wasn't the gifts of the Spirit. I'm sorry. Anyways, they were talking about something that God gives the church, and they were talking about how they believe it's fluid. That if the Bible is still being written, that one of that would be, I guess, the gift of technology, being able to do the technical things that the church is able to do these days with live streams or social media promotions, just words on the screens, walls, whatever. But if scripture is still being written, or if I guess some of the things were translated in today's time, love the Lord thy God. We always say when you're up or when you're down. when you're happy or sad, when life is what you want it to be, when life's not what you be. Love the Lord thy God when you're on the platform, when you're not on the platform.
Yep.
When you got the solo or when you don't have the solo. Here's one for me. This is my another confession. Love God when you're on the bass. Love God when you're on the guitar.
Here, let's make it hard. Love God with all your heart if you get sat down.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
If someone comes and says your spirit's not right, we're gonna switch it out. Or this doesn't happen as much for musicians as it does singers. I know we practice that song that you have that solo on in practice. We're not going to do that song tonight. And it does happen for musicians a little bit. I don't get solos in church, but if there's a guitar part that goes with the song, you know, of course we plan to do that. And sometimes there's some pretty fun guitar parts. And before service, I'm like, oh, please, God, let that be the
Lord,
song
if it be your will.
that you want tonight. Let that be the one that you just sit down on and sit down while I'm playing, you know, carnal there. And then we're not even going to touch that song.
Yeah.
We're not doing it. We're not thinking about it. Forget it. We're going complete different direction. And the song we do, we don't even want to hear the guitar on. Turn it down, you know? And,
You're not needed. Go away.
and it's, you know, can you worship? And at that point, can I still be not only a worshiper, but I guess this is getting a little bit off topic, but can I still do what's asked of me?
Yep.
Not solo, not do a lead riff, just
Play
a little bit of rhythm guitar on this song, chord some things, you know, just add to the music. Don't try to outshine anybody. Can you do it in the contrast of life, the contrast of situations?
This late night has a very, very strong AFR talk vibe to it.
It feels totally different than the 6 a.m. ones.
It does. I feel like I feel like I have the ability to laugh more.
Yeah.
Late at night.
That's because you get
than early morning.
And we cover the
mustard
most
stories.
serious
Yeah,
stuff in
yeah.
the night ones.
It's contrast. Contrast makes us better. But we hope y'all have enjoyed listening. We hope this has blessed you in some way. We hope that you will like, comment, and subscribe if you've made it this far in the video, all 30 of you.
Most important thing, you. And you. And especially you. You the most.
not even looking at you.
We need you to send this to your mother.
Yes.
Send this to your father, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins, children. That one guy that you don't really know him, but you follow each other. Send it to him. Your boss, coworker, your employees if you're a boss, somebody on the street. Send this to them and tell them to like, follow, subscribe, comment, and everything else.
If they're a musician
Or a singer.
or a singer.
Or want to be.
Or
wanna
you
be.
just enjoy three random dudes talking about music and God around the table with the mixer. and stuff.
There you go. This thing is making us sound awesome.
Well,
I'm just saying.
It's hard for me to get the hang of it, but I think I've about got us.
I saw you turn me down earlier.
I saw him do a bunch of stuff to it earlier.
Oh,
But we do hope y'all have enjoyed listening, and we also hope that you will always. Did he turn you off?
All right, there we go. you
You
bro.
welcome to Cody Melton's Talkback Corner podcast.
That ain't
Okay,
even
that's
cool,
much
bro.
better.
Come on now. Hey, oh,
You can't do it after I push the button.
I didn't press. You what? Join us next time on episode 8.
To close us out, as Pastor Lambert always says, may you pour out before the Lord in all that you do, whether it be your worship, your praise, yes, your music, and we pray you have an amazing service on Sunday.
Can I say one thing before we end? I am so glad that they are back.
Who?
Pastor.
Yes.
Have they made it back?
I think so. They were in Memphis a little while ago.
Yes, we hit. Pastor,
We love
if
you,
you
Pastor.
if you have time to watch this,
Whichever
missed you.
camera you are in,
we've missed you.
we missed you. We love you. I'm glad you're home.
Welcome back to Iuka, Mississippi.